Thank you so much for joining us here at Freedom Church Online. God is moving in incredible ways, and it's because of the generosity of people just like you that we are able to carry out the vision of reaching people far from God. Just go to freedomchurch.tv/giving and choose from the many options available to give at Freedom Church. Now, let's get ready to hear a life-changing message from God's Word.
A kiss on the ring, I carry the crown. Nothing can break me down. I'm the man, come round. No, nothing can break me down. I'm the man, come round. And no, nothing can break. You can't break me down. Got gas in the tank, got money in the bank. I got news for you, baby, you're looking at the man. I got skin in the game, got a household name. I got news for you, baby, you're looking at the man. When it comes to Friday, I always earn. Don't try to teach me, got nothing to learn. 'Cause baby, I'm gifted, you see what I mean? USDA certified lead. I'm the man. Right hand to God, first in command. My testimony when I take the stand. Who's the man? Who's the man? Who's the man with the plan? I'm the man. Who's the man? Who's the man? Who's the man with the plan? I'm the man. I'm the man.
What's up, Freedom Church? Y'all doing good today? Good. I'm glad you're here. Today's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get started, let me tell you a couple things. I don't usually do this, but this coming Wednesday, we got a busy week this week. But this coming Wednesday is Heart and Soul. It's going to be our final, last ever Heart and Soul. So make sure that you are here for it. This last one can be your first one if you've never been. People always ask me, this is one of the reasons we're changing it up and shifting a few things, is because people always ask me, am I allowed to come to Heart and Soul? Is Heart and Soul for other, like the special people, whoever the special people are? I don't know. But is it for the special people that are at church? Is that who that's for? I'm like, no, it's for everybody. You can bring anybody to Heart and Soul. You don't even have to attend our church to come to Heart and Soul. It's insane. Those of you that have ever been, you know that you need to arrive as early as you possibly can that night. We'll give you a few details, but typically people will be tailgating out in the parking lot 3 or 4 hours before it even starts, as long as it's not pouring down rain or anything like that. But make sure you're here. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. We're going to have a blast. Today, though, we're going to continue and then actually end our series called How Not to Be a Jerk Face. And it's been such a fun series so far. I love every once in a while throwing in series that is just designed to be a ton of fun, super helpful to see what it is that Jesus says about a lot of the issues that we face in our life. We all know that there's some jerk face people, and that we also all know that we all struggle with jerk face tendencies at times. And so as a result, we wanted to really dive into this series today. I think is going to be key. It's going to be a lot of fun. I want to talk about this, and I don't know how I'm going to word it all yet. I'll figure it out kind of as I go, even though I just preached this message a few minutes ago for the 8:30 worship experience to the crowd that just loves Jesus so much because they come at 8:30. But the truth is, I want to talk about the fact that sometimes there are some things in your life and in my life that are blocking the flow of the blessing of God. And I don't know how you are, but I don't want anything blocking the flow of the blessing of God in my life. I don't want anything in my life blocking the flow of anything. But when it comes to the blessing of God on my life, I don't want anything blocking the flow. Sometimes it happens. Have you ever had a clog in a sink or something like that? And this happened to me a week ago. And in our master bathroom, or whatever the heck they're calling those things now, what is that? An ensuite. What is that? They talked about en suites forever. I'm like, that's called a master bathroom. That's what that is called. neither here nor there, ADD moment, I apologize. I was in the bathroom and I was turning on the water, and the water just kept rising. I'm like, why is the water rising? It's not going down. It's not going down like it's supposed to. It's going up. I had to turn the water off. I had to figure out a way to make the water go down. Eventually it did. I went and got a coat hanger like you're supposed to. I don't know if you're supposed to do this. I went and got a coat hanger and stuck it down into the thing, and tried to make it go away. And usually, because I live in a house with 3 girls with a lot of hair, usually a gigantic hairball will come out, but nothing came out at all. And I was trying to figure out what in the world is going on. So I went on YouTube to figure out how to free up this clog. They said you got to take the curved part off. You got to take the curved part off underneath the sink. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know what it's called, the curved part. And so I went underneath and I undid the curved part. And they didn't tell me to be real careful when you're holding the curved part, because if there's a clog, if you take off the curved part, there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out of the curved part, because it's connected to the straight part. And the straight part, it'll drop down stuff on top of you if you're not careful. That's never happened to y'all. Y'all are smarter than that. And so as a result, it took me a minute to clean that up, even though I had poured Drano in the sink. It says to pour half a bottle of Drano. My philosophy of life is this. If it says you're supposed to take 2 ibuprofen, you take 3 or 4. If you're supposed to pour half a bottle of Drano, you pour the full thing. That'll help, right? That's pretty much the way I operate. None of that worked. I just got Drano all over myself whenever I pulled off the curved part. But while I was doing it, it reminded me of several years ago, the kids' toilet was clogged at our old house. And the toilet was ridiculous. We got a plunger. Everybody has the cheap plunger that they think's going to work, and it didn't work, so you had to go buy the expensive plunger, you know what I mean, as far as plungers are concerned. And I bought both plungers. Neither one of them worked. We had a snake, the thing that you twist and goes down in there. That didn't even work. It was hitting something. It was like, boom, the snake would go down, and boom. I was like, what could it possibly be hitting? That is so hard. And it just go down, and nothing would happen. And so I don't know how to do anything. I really don't. I don't just say that. I legitimately just do not know how to do things. And so my dad had to come over, and he's like, we're going to have to take this toilet apart. I'm like, how? How does that happen? And he showed me how to do it. We unscrewed this thing, and we pulled the toilet apart. And I kid you not, you know what was in that drain? Blocking the flow, not of the blessing of God, but it was blocking the flow of other things. The thing blocking the flow was a full bottle of perfume. Somehow, an entire little bottle of perfume was in the toilet down at the bottom, not letting anything go down. It still had all the perfume in it. I don't know if they used it after that or not, but there was a full bottle of perfume blocking the flow, keeping us from being able to flush a toilet. And here's what I think. I don't know if this illustration is going to work. I think it did. There is something blocking the flow of the blessing of God in your life, and it's probably not what you expect. I want to show you this in the Bible, in the book of Mark. If you have your Bible or if it's on your phone, however it is you do the Bible, I want you to look in Mark chapter 6. Jesus was teaching, and he went back. He had just done a bunch of miracles in this town, and then he goes back to his hometown. And when he goes back to his hometown, here's what he says in Mark chapter 6, beginning of verse 1. Jesus left there, and he went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. Those are the people that followed Jesus everywhere he went. It says, when the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue. That's a fancy word for church. And many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things, they asked. What is this wisdom that has been given him that he even does miracles? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. In other words, they couldn't understand that this was the Son of God. And it made them angry that he claimed to be. So Jesus said in verse 4, so Jesus says to them, only in his hometown, among his relatives and in his own house is a prophet without honor. Say honor. He could not. This is interesting because if you ask the question, is there anything that Jesus cannot do? Most of us would say no. But it says here, he could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. And he was amazed at their lack of faith. Picture it. Jesus goes back to his hometown. Where does if a person wants to do amazing things, and he's been doing amazing things, Where does he want to do even more amazing things? He wants to do it with the people that he loves. He wants to do it among the people that he knows. He wants to do it in his hometown, not just some random town. He wants to do it in his hometown. He went back to his hometown with the intention of doing just the most amazing miracles that you've ever seen. And when he gets there, it says that he couldn't. He couldn't do the miracles that he wanted to do. And that's interesting to me, because you don't really think of there being something that Jesus could not do. And it plainly says that Jesus could not perform many miracles there. But he had just performed many miracles where he was. So what is it that happened between where he was and where he is that now it does not allow him to do what it is that he did? I hope you understood that, because I cannot repeat that. It says that as a result of the fact that he could not do many miracles there, it says that he was astounded, amazed at their lack of faith. Why is it? And what is it that was blocking the flow of the blessing of God? It's something that you least expect most of the time. The thing that it is, and what I want to talk about today more than anything else, is the fact that familiarity will block the flow of the blessing of God in your life. Familiarity will block the flow. In other words, for the people that were in Jesus' hometown when Jesus came back, it was a lack of honor among those people in regard to the person who wanted to do the miracles. See, when it comes to honor, let me give you a definition just so you know we have a working definition that we can kind of build off of. Honor is to value or highly esteem, to treat as precious or valuable. Honor is something that we don't really talk about that much in our culture. We don't talk, you know why we don't talk about it that much? It's because we're just not that good at it. And if you're like me, you don't really like talking about stuff you're not good at as much as you prefer to talk about things that maybe you are good at. And so our culture, we're just not that good at it. Have you ever been to a restaurant before and heard kids talking to parents sometimes? And you hear them and you are so confused by what you think you just heard, because you know that if you heard what you think you just heard, somebody should be getting punted. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever heard somebody say something so crazy to their parent that even though it's not your kid, you want to spank them anyway? You ever been in that situation? If you've never been in that situation and you have kids, then I don't know what that means. And you don't know if you want to spank the kid or the parent. You're like, you let that kid say that to you? What's wrong? What is wrong with you? Now, can I tell you what's wrong? They learned it from you. I love doing what I do. It's so fun. They learned it from you. They heard how you talked about politicians. I knew it. I said whenever I was sitting at my desk, I got to the office today at 6:05. I would have got there earlier, but I had to turn around. I forgot my backpack, which has my computer in it. So I had to turn back around, go home, get it. I got to the office, and I was looking through this thing one more time, and I said, they're going to love this message till I get to that part. And when I say that part, they're going to look at me like, oh, dear God, here we go. So what happens is if we're not careful, they'll hear some of the things that we say, and they don't, you know that they don't necessarily do what you say, they do what you do. This is not just politicians, this can be ex-husbands, ex-wives. This can be your current husband or your current wife. I used to go to Starbucks. I don't ever go to Starbucks anymore because I just see every single, I go to Starbucks and I see the whole world, and I love it. I just can't get anything done. So I would go to Starbucks. Have any of you ever done this? And you put in headphones, but you're sitting behind a big group of people, and they're interesting what they're talking about. So you put your headphones in, you just don't turn on the music so you can hear what they're saying. Yes. I've never done that. I've just heard about it. And you hear something, they'll be complaining about their spouse and how terrible their spouse is and this, that, and the other. And you're like, man, I'd be terrible too if I was married to you. You ever wanted to say that? I've never said that. I've never wanted to say that to anybody out there. I've never wanted to say that. It's crazy just how the things that we say, the stuff we gossip about sometimes. Social media now. I think social media is awesome. I really do. I think it's an amazing tool. I think it's crazy that right now there will be more people tuned in online across the world than all the people that'll be here throughout the course of 4 worship experiences every day. I think that's amazing. I think it's great. But I think it's a tool, but it's also a tool that can be abused quick. Because it gives people this platform where they think they can say whatever they want about whoever they want, and they don't have to deal with getting punched in the throat when they say it. Because remember, back in the day, if you said something bad about somebody, they'd come and punch you in the throat. Well, now you live in a different state. They don't even, you know what I mean? You can say anything you want to anybody that you want, anytime that you want. And it's normal. The reason that it's normal is because of a lack of honor. Here's where it gets serious, though. It gets serious because the lack of honor, Mark chapter 6, is the thing that was blocking the flow of the blessing of God in their life. It has everything to do with this principle called the perception principle. The perception principle, here's what it says. How you perceive somebody is how you'll receive them. So, if I go to the doctor and the doctor comes out and tells me what's going on, because I perceive him to be knowledgeable, I receive his information and I take it seriously. But if I went to McDonald's, I haven't been to McDonald's in probably a decade, but if I went to McDonald's today and I'm just sitting there trying to get me some French fries, and the person behind the counter tells me all this stuff about medicine and what's going on in my body, and I know that they are not a doctor. When they tell me stuff, I'm going to be like, cool. Because I know that I perceive them to not be knowledgeable about that field. Therefore, I'm not going to receive that wisdom. It's like having a financial advisor that doesn't have any money. I want my financial advisor to be wealthy. If I have a personal trainer, I want him to be in shape. I don't want him huffing and puffing when I'm the one working out. I'm like, why are you tired? If your personal trainer is not in shape, you need to get you a new personal trainer. Perception principle. What you see is what you get. The problem is a lot of us, we're not seeing correctly. And if we don't see correctly, and if we see something that isn't true, but we believe it to be true, it'll still affect us as if it was true. And so for us, I got to figure out for me, and to hopefully help you, answer the question, how do we eliminate the blockage that's blocking the flow of the blessing of God in our life? Because I bet everybody in here wants to experience the full blessing of God. Is that true? I mean, it's true for 12 of you. I wish it was true for everybody. I want to experience the blessing of God, don't you? So how do we do it? Because we can't receive it if there's something blocking it. I think there's a couple things we have to do. I think the first thing we have to do is we have to have a high view of God. A high view of God. I need to tell you this. I know I like the shirt, but it's not a good shirt. There's a shirt that says, Jesus is my homeboy. Can I tell you one thing Jesus is not? He is not your homeboy. He's not. He's a friend that sticks closer than a brother, but he's not your homeboy. Jesus is not one of the boys. He's not 8-pound, 6-ounce baby Jesus. He's not. He's a risen and conquering king. He's not your homeboy. But watch, here's where it gets dangerous. If you perceive him to just be your homeboy, then his commands are going to be optional to you. Sunday will be a if I feel like it kind of thing. If you have a low view of God instead of a high view of God. Obedience will be a if it's convenient. You know, there's some commands that are easier to obey than others. Like most of us are like, okay, I'm not going to murder because the Lord told me not to. I'm going to try not to murder that much. I'm going to do really good. I'm going to be better. I'm going to do it. Even if I did murder in the past, I'm not going to do it in the future. This Freedom Church, you got to make sure you put forgiveness in there and let everybody know it's not about the past, it's about moving forward. We kind of know that one. But there's a lot where we're thinking to ourselves, I think a lot of God's commands are optional for me. They're not optional. This is what we do. They're not optional for anybody else. They're just optional for me. That's what happens. And we all, listen, guilty, we all do it at times. So don't be looking at me like, I bet Pastor JR would never do that. I've done it. The truth is that when you start feeling like it's optional, it means that we have a low view of God. Because again, you can't receive him as the Son of God if you perceive him to be one of the boys. That's what the problem was in Mark chapter 6. He went to the hometown. He's like, it's going to be awesome. We're going to make some things happen. And they're like, who are you? I mean, I get it, though. I mean, I don't want to just come down on these guys super hard because it'd be difficult. These people went to kindergarten with Jesus. That's weird. That's weird to even think about. You imagine going to kindergarten with Jesus? Jesus comes walking in with his lunchbox. Like, what kind of lunchbox does Jesus have? I bet it was awesome. He throws his backpack over his bag with his, I don't know, what is it, picture of himself on there? I don't know. He's walking around. Got him a Jesus lunchbox and a Jesus backpack. He eats bread all the time. So imagine, you go out to recess and you're playing games with Jesus. Then you go to first grade and second grade. Now you're in seventh grade with Jesus. Jesus had brothers and sisters. So you go you're friends with the brothers and sisters. You go spend the night at Jesus' house. You're playing tag with Jesus. You're playing Red Rover with Jesus. Because they didn't have like real games. They played Red Rover and stuff. They had to do, I don't know, dodgeball. You imagine playing dodgeball with Jesus? I bet he was so good. He'd catch every ball that came at him. I bet that was hilarious. This is the stuff I think about while I'm up here preaching. This is ridiculous. Fast forward in time, he works with his dad. His dad's a carpenter. It's not just it's not like just simply a carpenter like we have now. Think contractor type. You got a guy who is building houses and you live in it, and you know Jesus' dad and Jesus built it, and now all of a sudden Jesus is like, oh yeah, I built your house. We played Red Rover. I'm the Son of God. I mean, putting yourself in their shoes, that's weird. You're like, you're not the Son of God. I saw your lunchbox. So you see how this can be challenging? So because it was so challenging, they couldn't perceive him to be the Son of God, so they couldn't receive him as the Son of God, and as a result, it blocked the flow. My point to you is that if you and I think that Jesus is just our homeboy, then it's going to block the flow of the blessing of God because we're not going to receive him as the Son of God. We're just going to receive him as someone that we talk about on Sunday. Why read the Bible if we have a low view of God? There's no point. It's purposeless. It makes no sense. Why sing a song? Why go to Heart and Soul? Why make church a priority? Why give? Why do any of the things that we talk about? Why do any of that if we have a low view of God? Honestly, we shouldn't. If he's just our homeboy. We have people in our lives that we are not common, but we treat them as common, and as a result, we can't receive from them what it is that God actually put them on earth to put into us. I got to keep going. So a high view of God and also a high view of people. Watch this, if you have a high view of God, you will have a high view of people. If you have a low view of God, you will have a low view of people. So, how you perceive people tells me less about how you perceive people, and it tells me more about how you perceive God. People that act like you, think like you, look like you, vote like you, it's all people. And Jesus tells us, he says, we're supposed to love others as Jesus loved us. We're supposed to love others as we love ourselves. As we start getting that right, we'll start loving people right. The problem is most of us can't, and we think it's a people issue, and it's really a God issue. Because again, if Jesus is your homeboy, you're going to love the people that are easy to love. You're just not going to love everybody else because you're going to think everybody else falls under the suggestion category. You see where this message gets hard all of a sudden? You're like, oh, dear Lord, he's talking to me. That's how I feel. I'm like, I'm preaching to myself, and I'm just letting everybody else hear it. There's some people out there that are harder to love than others. It's like, you remember that movie Sandlot? How many of you remember the movie Sandlot? Raise your hand. You want to feel old? I'm going to make you feel old right now. Sandlot, I thought that it was about 10 years old. That movie straight up came out 26 years ago. "26 years ago. You remember the story? This is a bunch of baseball playing kids. It's a great movie. I do remember letting my kids watch it when they were really young. And have you ever watched movies when you were little and then you forget about them until you're older and you tell your kids to go watch them, but you forgot about all the stuff that's in the movie? Oh, Lord. But in this movie, you got this new kid that moves in. His name is Smalls. You remember Smalls? That kid was a funny kid. And then Benny, he was like the one who was the best baseball player. And Benny's up to bat, and they're playing out on the sandlot. And Benny's up to bat, and he hits the ball, and he literally knocks the stuffing out of the ball. And they're all like, wow, that was amazing, but now we can't play. Because they didn't have a big old bucket of balls like we do. We carry buckets of balls every time we go to practice. They just had one ball. So they thought it was amazing, but they also wanted to keep playing. So Smalls, he's like, I got a ball. So Smalls runs all the way to his house, and he goes into his stepdad's like room where he has all kind of keepsakes and such, memorabilia. And he has this ball that's sitting there. And remember, Smalls, he don't know nothing about baseball. I think he played Fortnite his whole life. He didn't know nothing about no baseball. So he walks in and he grabs this ball, and this ball, it has a person's name on it, but it didn't mean anything to Smalls. So Smalls just grabs the ball and he's like, I got a ball. And he runs back and they're like, yay, you have a ball. And they start playing with the ball, and one of the kids hits a home run over the fence where that big mean dog was. You remember? And he's like, oh, man. Now he starts freaking out because that was his dad's ball. And they start asking him questions about the ball. He's like, yeah, there's somebody's name on it, Baby Ruth. You remember? And they're like, Babe Ruth? And they start naming all his nicknames. The Sultan of SWAT, the Great Bambino. You're talking about Babe Ruth? And he's like, yeah, who's that? And that's when you want to slap the kid a little bit for not knowing who Babe Ruth was. But he starts freaking out. All the people start freaking out. And Benny, he says to him, hey, that ball is worth more, you remember what he said, than your whole life. That's what he said to him. That ball is worth more than your whole life. And Smalls falls down on his knees, and he's like, I don't feel so good. And then the whole rest, I'm not going to spoil it for those that have not asked Jesus to come into their heart and you have not seen the movie. But the whole rest of the movie is about trying to get the ball back. Other than the signature on the ball, it was just a ball. The thing that made it valuable was the signature that was on it. And what I've learned and what I need you to realize and remember, it's not even so much realization as much as it is remembering. Every person that you've ever looked at, every person that you've ever seen, every person that you've ever laid eyes on, whether you agree with them or you don't, whether they look like you or they don't, whether they voted like you or they didn't, whether you know them well or you've never seen them before. Every person you've ever come in contact with has God's signature on their life. And as a result, every person that you have ever seen is far more valuable than what you probably have ever realized. It's impossible for us to honor God if we're dishonoring others. This is where it gets tough. This message gets tough because you're like, man, I mean, if you're honest, I think this is the right church from the standpoint that we're very, very honest about stuff. Sometimes people will be like, I don't know if you should be so honest about that. I know we struggle with this. We all do. It's hard to always have a high view of people. It's hard to not at times have a low view of others when we feel as if they deserve it. And sometimes when everybody would agree that they don't deserve it. You know you have a low view of people when you forgive really slowly. That one hurts a little, doesn't it? It's like, oh, come on, man. Let's not talk about that one as much. Or whether it's forgiving slowly, this isn't a real word, but it fits the message better. Forgive slowly or you love shallowly. I don't think that's the word, but it is today. Romans chapter 12, verse 10 says, love one another with brotherly affection. Watch this. Outdo one another in showing honor. It's like God saying, you should have an honor contest. Let other people honor you, you honor other people. Try to extend so much honor into the lives of others that other people think you have lost your ever-loving mind. Because here's what will happen, I promise you. This is the thing that I think pastors need to double down on more and people need to grasp more firmly. It's not about trying harder to honor. Here's what you do. God, I'm committing today, with your help and your power, to have a higher view of God. Because watch, if I have a higher view of God, guess what will happen? I'll have a higher view of people. I'll remember that God's name is on them, just like God's name is on me. I want to treat other people the way that I want people to treat me. Better yet, I want to treat other people, here it is, the way God treated me. So when you have a high view of God, when you have a high view of others, that high view will lead to the high road. Here's where it gets hard because I know how people are. I told you this already. There's so much I don't know. I mean, I don't know very much about very many things, but I know people well. This is what I do. I know people. I know what people say, and when they say it, I know what they're thinking and what they really mean. Because most of the time, you don't say what you really mean. What you say is a symptom of something going on that's deeper in your heart. Honoring people is decided, not deserved. It's decided, not deserved. Because we think if I treat you with honor, or let me say it this way, if you are honorable, then I'll treat you with honor. But God flips that. And he says, no, instead, when you ascribe to them honor, they will often become honorable. Now watch this. I know how you are. I know how you are, because this is how I am. There's a skeptic in all of us. What if they don't? What if I try to honor the person, or what if I try to honor the position and they just become more jerk-facey? And I'm trying, Pastor, I'm trying. I'm for real. I am trying. And they're getting worse. Even if they don't, as much as it depends on me, and if I'm you, as much as it depends on you, I'm going to treat people the way that God treated me. regardless of whether I agree with them or not. We've lost the art of being able to disagree without disrespect. Did you know some of my best friends, we disagree on so much, but we still can. You can still be friends with people you disagree with. That's amazing. You can disagree without disrespect. People always ask the question, well, how do I honor a dishonorable person? And I get that what I'm about to say is easier said than done. How do you honor a dishonorable person? You want to know how you do it? You decide to. It's hard. Because are any of you like me? When somebody says something, you're like very quick-witted, like you automatically think of something, you're like, oh God, that would be so funny to say. Here, are you like, anybody like that? Raise your hand. I just want to see who not to talk to sometimes. That's good. It's like me. All of you like me would just get in a big old circular argument, be funny. See, a culture of honor in our families, a culture of honor at our schools and businesses and wherever it is that we are, what it does is it brings healing, it brings restoration, it brings forgiveness, it brings hope, it brings joy, it brings unity, it brings just this wholeness in a sense. It gives you the ability to look into the eyes of people and to be able to see them and know that they are not what they did, they are who God said that they are. And that's what we want for us. I want people to look at me, and I want to be able to look at me and be like, I'm not what I did, I am who God says I am. I am a son of the Most High God, the child of the King. I'm righteous. That's weird. It's weird to say that about yourself. I'm royalty. I'm enough. I'm forgiven. I'm loved. Listen, even if everybody else were to walk out, God never leaves. He's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. When I feel like I'm a million miles away from God, if I were to turn to look to my left, there He would be right by my side. And when I begin to have a higher view of God, I'll have a higher view of others. I'll be able to take the high road. And all of a sudden, I have more to talk about with people than other people. I can live the life that God's called me and enabled me to live with this unity that allows me to sit across the table from somebody who I previously would have never been able to sit across the table from and call them my brother or my sister, because we have more in common through the person of Jesus than we are different based on whatever else it might be. But it's only possible with a culture of honor. So my prayer for us, for me, for you, for us collectively, for our city, because I don't think God calls you here to just start a church. I think God calls you here to change a city. Is that we would grow in the area of honor in every area of our life. Just think about this. I mean, just like Jesus did, right? I mean, Romans chapter 5, verse 8, but God demonstrates His own love for us in this, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Here's what that means. God loved you even when you were unlovable. God loved me even when I was as dumb as could be. God loved me when I didn't deserve it, because honestly, I've never deserved it. On my best day, I've never deserved it. God demonstrated His love for me in that while I was still a sinner, far from God, He died for me. What did He do when He died for me? On the cross, He had not only nails through His hands and through His feet and a sword through His side and a crown of thorns on His head, but He had my sin placed upon Himself. My stuff I've said and thought stuff I should have done, shouldn't have done. All that was placed on Jesus because he said, I'm going to choose to honor you, even though you're not very honorable. And by me ascribing to you honor, you can become a child of God and obtain the honor that only I can give. And now that I have received that, April the 11th, 1996, now that I said yes to what Jesus did for me, I'm able to extend that same honor into the lives of other people when they deserve it, and especially when they don't. When people walk in and when people walk out, you can still honor them because God's signature is on their life. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be best friends. Sometimes the best way to love somebody is to separate yourself. That's a whole nother message. The question for me is, can I honor people the way that God has honored me? Because I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not where I used to be. I'm not where I want to be. I just want to take a step in the right direction today. Don't you? I hope you do. If you don't, I hope the Holy Spirit changes your mind and says, get with the program. Get a higher view of God. Because if you're like, nope, I ain't doing it because I don't love people, it has nothing to do with your love for people. It has everything to do with your view of God. Bow your head and close your eyes all over the room. If you would, there's so much more I want to say, just don't have time to do it. The greatest decision that you can make today is not just to honor other people, it's to realize that God has honored you by sending his son Jesus to do for you what you were unable to do for yourself. And maybe you're here today and what you need more than anything else is a personal relationship with God through the person of Jesus, who came to live and to die and to be buried and then to be risen from the dead so that you could experience hope, joy, forgiveness, and a brand new life. So if that's you and you're here today and you want to become a follower of Jesus, you want to say yes to what Jesus did for you, then right where you are right now, just pray this prayer in your heart as I pray it out loud. It's not magic. It's just you doing what Jesus said to do. If that's your desire, you want to say yes to Jesus, just pray this with me in your heart. Say, Lord, the best way I know how, I say yes to you. I'm asking you to step into my life. I'm asking you to make all things new. I want to be a follower of yours from this day forward. Thank you for honoring me. And I'm choosing to honor you by saying yes to your sacrifice. Thank you for changing me and saving me. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Y'all look at me real quick. If you're here today, grab your phone. Even if you're watching online, you can pull out your phone. And if you're in this room and you just prayed to receive Jesus, you just prayed that prayer with me, you said yes to Jesus for the very first time, what I want you to do is I want you to text the word free to the number that you're going to see up on the screen in just a moment. Text the word free to the number you're going to see on the screen. If you're watching online and you just prayed to receive Jesus, text the word online to the number that you see on the screen right now. That helps us to know where it is that you were on this particular day. This gives us the ability to help walk you through the most important steps of your life, because this, saying yes to Jesus, is not the end, it's just the beginning. And we believe that this is the first day of the rest of your life, and God has an amazing plan for you. So if that's you, right where you are, just text that. I think I've given you long enough to do it. Text the word free or online to the number you'll see on the screen. Jump to your feet real quick, or just stand to your feet. You don't even have to jump. Just get up on your feet real quick. I'm going to pray for you. We're going to sing a song. We're going to do one more thing, so nobody's allowed to leave as of yet. Dear Lord, I love you. I'm grateful for you. God, I pray that you would grow us in the area of honor today. I pray that you would help us to take a step. We're not going to be great at it by the time we walk out of this room, but we can be better at it by the time we walk out of this room. And then every day, I pray that you would help us to make the decision and the choice to follow hard after the heart of God, because you honored us. Therefore, we can honor others. Give us a high view of people, because we have a high view of God. We love you, and we're grateful for you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We are grateful to have you as part of our online family right here at Freedom Church. I know you want to be obedient in the area of generosity, so what I would love for you to do is go to freedomchurch.tv/giving. It'll give you all the different options and all the different ways that you can give. Just know this, I love you, I'm proud of you, and I cannot wait to see you soon. Y'all have a great week.